In this video, we're going to be talking about how elevator pitches can be useful as you're reaching out to new contacts as part of your strategic networking. Remember, networking always involves sharing information about yourself as much as it involves learning about others. So let's start off by understanding the term elevator pitch itself. What is it, and what does it have to do with networking? Well, the idea behind an elevator pitch is that if you happen to find yourself in an elevator with an important person, perhaps your boss or an angel investor or a senior manager at a company you really want to work for, you should be able to convince that person that you have something that they want or need in the time it takes for an elevator to reach its destination. Because once the elevator arrives at their floor, this important person will leave, and you may not get to interact with them again. So in this hypothetical example, that might give you about 30 to 90 seconds to communicate something of value to this person, and that's not a long time at all. The good news is that most of you reading this won't be in a sales position, and you won't be trying to pitch an idea or an invention to someone to get them to part with their money. However, you may be talking about a service that you offer, and that service is your knowledge, skills, and experience. So the concept that you are going to be pitching is that there is something of interest about you that might be useful to them. An important part of networking is being able to tell other people what you can do well, and what you have been able to achieve. People can find it quite hard to sell their strengths and qualities, but if you don't talk about them, then it is possible that no one else will. You have to be an advocate for the things that you do well, because no one will be a better advocate for you than you. Now, because networking is more about starting conversations than just telling lots of people how good you are, the purpose of an elevator pitch in a networking situation is to help people understand why they will enjoy talking to you some more. It is a way of identifying shared experiences and interests with people you meet so that you have something that you can actually talk about together. The more you know about the people you meet, the easier it is to find these areas of shared interests, and the more likely it is that you'll have a productive conversation. And surely a productive conversation starter is much better than the awkwardness of a silent elevator playing music like this. As I mentioned, this is the original basis of the term elevator pitch. It paints a clear picture of what you are trying to achieve in a short amount of time. You may see that many people describe this approach as a professional pitch, rather than an elevator pitch, and one of the reasons for this is that you are probably not going to be doing this in an elevator at all. In fact, you are going to be using this type of professional pitch much more regularly when you are creating your online profiles, answering the "tell me about yourself" question in an interview, introducing yourself to people at an academic conference, or when you're chatting with an alumna after a panel discussion about careers in a specific industry. These are very different environments than an elevator, but what you're trying to achieve, in terms of starting conversations of interest to the people you are meeting, remain much the same. Here are just some examples of where you can use elements of a professional pitch here on campus, or in the broader world beyond Penn. Some of these are situations that happen every day, others are more infrequent, but often more intentional, where you have proactively decided to attend an event with a specific goal to meet people or a particular person. There are as many reasons to want to network with people as there are people to network with, and part of your goal when developing a networking strategy is to figure out why you want to connect with certain people. During the process of career exploration, one of the main reasons to start a conversation with someone in a career field that interests you is to find out more about that field. You might ask about what the work is like, what skills are required, what type of person is usually successful in a type of role. Anything you learn from a conversation like this can help you be a better future applicant, or help you decide that a particular career path is or is not for you. The goal of this presentation isn't to help you create a single scripted narrative about yourself that you can use in any networking situation. That is not how it works. Our goal is to get you thinking about the type of information that will be helpful for you to share with others, and to think about it from the perspective of what others might want to learn about you. Most importantly, it'll be important to be able to communicate to others how they can help you. So a good starting point for creating effective narratives is to think about what you can share about yourself with others. What skill or knowledge define you as a professional? What qualities do people associate with you? What can you bring to a professional working environment? These are all questions that you need to ask yourself. There is an assignment as part of the elevator pitch section on Canvas that you should complete. This will get you thinking about the different ways that you can be thinking about yourself. This self-reflection will help you whenever someone asks you who you are and what you do, which happens a lot when meeting new people. You also want to incorporate into your self-reflection feedback from people who know you and your work well. Oftentimes, you may tend to have a more pessimistic outlook about your own skills, experiences, and knowledge than those around you do. They see you differently, and how they see you is very important to the narratives you can create about yourself when meeting new people. There is plenty to be gained from thinking about how you can build on the way others see you. In fact, if you think about your professional brand, much of this is determined by the way people see you, and not just what you tell people about yourself. That's why you can sometimes be told by someone, "Oh, you're always so calm in a crisis," even though you may never actually feel calm in a crisis. People might say, "Oh, you're always so good at making complex topics easily understandable," even though you may feel that you struggle to do this effectively. People view you from their perspectives, and if you keep being told by people that they think you are great at doing something, then you should think hard about how you can more proactively talk about this as one of your strengths. These aren't really definitions of personal or professional branding, but they do a good job of communicating why it is important. When you are communicating something about yourself in an elevator pitch, you are trying to leave something memorable about you in the mind of the person you are meeting with. You want them to be able to go home at the end of the day and say, "Hey, I had a really interesting conversation with a student today called Julie. She's a blank." And in this case, the blank is what you communicated. If you cannot communicate something relevant and memorable, then you become a little like this generic bottle of wine, hard to interpret and more easily forgotten. How you label yourself is going to be important as you reach out to different networking contacts, and you may well wear slightly different labels when meeting people from different career fields. But much of what you bring in terms of skills and experiences will remain the same. So let's think about one approach to crafting your elevator pitch. Here are some general goals for the pitch. It will seem a little artificial to create a written version of what you hope to say, but it can be a good exercise to get you started. Every elevator pitch must include your name, stated clearly so that the person that you're meeting can say it. You might want to embrace your inner spy by taking the reverse James Bond approach to introducing yourself. Rather than saying your last name twice, say your first name twice, just to get it out there, and increase the chance that it's remembered. The next step in the pitch is to describe what you are and what you do. It is worth thinking about this part of the pitch very carefully, because most people usually state their position title, even though this doesn't do a very good job at telling me something memorable. So if I were to describe myself as a senior or a PhD student, then there isn't much here that might separate me from the 40,000 other seniors or PhD students out there. They may be accurate statements, but they're not very informative. Over the next few slides, I'm going to share some examples of the different parts of an elevator pitch coming together for 3 different made-up people. They are not meant to represent exactly what you're going to say, they are just representations of the type of information that can be provided. In this example, you can see that the listener is informed that the speaker is a PhD student, but that this information is included as part of a larger, more interesting narrative. Once again, the fact that the speaker is an undergraduate is clear, but the main takeaway here is that the speaker has founded their own student group. And this hints at the entrepreneurial and innovative nature of the speaker. While it may be less clear what type of student the speaker is in this example, the takeaway focuses specifically on the marketing expertise that this person might bring to a role. The best communicators you know are probably good at communicating because they don't just transmit facts, they integrate these facts into stories. There is no doubt that people remember stories and are more engaged by stories than they are by long lists of important facts. Any stories you tell will be unique to you, so the person you are talking to won't have heard them before. This makes you interesting, and being interesting increases the chances that people will want to engage with you. Now, your brief elevator pitch is not the time for a long, detailed story, but it is possible to integrate some storytelling approaches into a pitch. Here is our PhD student again. The new information provided here included a small amount of drama to hold the interest of the reader, but also introduces a few more key takeaways, including the fact that the speaker has successful collaborations with international colleagues, can demonstrate effective problem solving, and is a productive scientist with a new paper coming out. For this particular narrative, these skills are being prioritized. The undergraduate student here also identified some successful outcomes. Founding a student group is a nice experience to have, but founding an effective student group that leads to tangible outcomes is even better. One of the skills identified in this part of the narrative is the fact that the speaker is comfortable building relationships and communicating to people in different organizations and career fields. Not only is this student positioning themselves as a subject expert, they are also demonstrating the active steps they have taken to explore the work of this particular company. In this case, it is clear that the speaker has some knowledge of the person that they are talking to, and they want to show that they have done some of their background research into the company and their work to be able to ask smart questions. Telling short stories is one way to give the listener a brief glance into what you do and how you do it. When you're meeting people for the first time, one of your goals is to start a conversation, and throughout this conversation to share more about you while you're learning more about them. Since you will learn more when you are listening, and really doing this actively by listening to the way they describe what and how they do their work, which is language you might need to use if you're applying for a similar position in the future, transitioning your introduction into a question that gets the other person talking is a great approach. Here is the whole pitch for the PhD student. It's about 30 seconds long, give or take. The question at the end is about the other person's personal experience of the differences in the R&D process. This is much easier for them to answer compared to a more impersonal question such as, can you tell me what the differences are in R&D approaches between the US and Europe? The undergraduate student in this example isn't specifically targeting the person they're talking to, but they still do a good job making themselves as relevant as possible so that the other person feels like they share some common ground. This will be helpful to get any conversation started. This student has a very clear networking goal. What type of internship will help them develop experiences that will make them more employable in the future? By stating this goal clearly, the speaker is giving the other person the opportunity to help. The other person has all the information that they need to think about advice that will address this specific question. You need to be ready to showcase the best parts about you to people you meet without having to think about what you want to say or how you want to say it. This means that you need to create a few key takeaways and be ready to weave them into different narratives. Feeling comfortable doing this and eliminating the awkwardness of talking about yourself in positive, optimistic terms, which can be hard to do if you haven't had much opportunity to do this as a student, takes a lot of practice. This practice should be out loud practice. If you use your inner voice to do this, it will sound great in your head, but not so great when you try to say it. Hearing yourself give your pitch out loud will help you to remember it and solidify it as a memory that you can access at a moment's notice. You will find an assignment in this section where you can record 30 and 60-second versions of your narrative and listen to how these sound. You can even get feedback from friends as you work on perfecting your pitch. You can take some time practicing your pitch as soon as you're done with this video. With the wide diversity of contacts you can meet as part of your strategic networking plan, each conversation you have and each professional pitch that you will give will be slightly different. You definitely don't want to have the same conversation over and over again, after all. But as you think about the power of your personal or professional brand can have, make sure that people always have clear takeaways that will help them to remember why you might be a valuable contact for them to add to their network. As you perfect your pitch, it's probably also a good time to think about your handshake. You don't want your engaging introduction to be let down by a limp, damp handshake. Take a look at the next section to learn how to give an effective, professional, and confident handshake.